Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Education Committee, April 2025, and I believe we have everyone in the chamber whom we're expecting. I'll make a start. First of all, just to first item, apologies for absence. Leanne?
I've got apologies from Dorothy Graham.
Excellent.
Probably Karen's hoping to make it as soon as he can.
Evie laid a message, thanks, Colm. Yeah, thank you. Via Mark. And I think, do we have any apologies from Councillor Devlin, I take it?
Yes.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, declarations of interest. At all? No, that's great, thank you. So third item on the agenda, delighted to say that we've got the head teacher with us from St Joseph's this morning, lovely to see you. And Janice is going to take the report on the Education Scotland St Joseph's Primary School report. Thanks, Janice.
Thank you, Convener. This paper informs the Education Committee of the report by Education Scotland on St Joseph's Primary School. St Joseph's Primary School were inspected by Education Scotland in January 2025. Under the full model arrangements, Education Scotland evaluated 4 quality indicators and provided a short report detailing strengths and areas for improvement. A copy of the report is included in your appendices. In assessing the indicators of quality in the school, Education Scotland found all 4 aspects of the work to be very good. Leadership of change, learning, teaching, assessment, ensuring wellbeing and equality and inclusion, and raising attainment and achievement. The key strengths are listed in paragraph 10 of your cover paper. They include the highly effective head teacher provides very strong leadership and direction to the work of the school. The head teacher is supported very well by the deputy head teacher and principal teachers. Together with all staff, they are highly ambitious for all children. Children are happy, enthusiastic and confident. They are successful and independent learners who are achieving important skills for learning, life and work. They display the gospel values of hope, compassion, justice and the love as they learn and play together. Children are proud of their school. This is a very good report on East Renfrewshire School. It is particularly pleasing that the inspection team identified leading practice across Scotland and noted the following area to be worth sharing more widely nationally. The effective approaches which support children to assess how well they are learning and to recall their prior learning. This is effective in supporting how children independently assess how much support they require in their next steps in learning. Teachers support children well with this through structured questions, opportunities for children to reflect on their learning, and the use of individual digital profiles. These profiles are helpful for children to reflect on their learning as they progress through school. The inspection team agreed 2 areas for improvement with School and Education Department. Continue to build on the highly effective practice in learning, teaching and assessment, and as planned, continue to develop approaches to the tracking and monitoring of skills across the curriculum. Appendices to this report include the school's action plan to address these agreed areas for improvement. It should be noted that both these areas are to continue. The Quality Improvement Service will work closely with the school and its leadership team to support the implementation of the action plan and will revisit within 2 years of the date of the publication of the report and review the impact of the action plan in addressing the agreed areas of improvement. Education Committee is asked to recognise and comment on the achievements of St Joseph's Primary as outlined in the Education Scotland report and approve the action plan to address the agreed areas for improvement. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Janice. First of all, before I put it out to members to recognise and comment on the report, we do have some words from Dorothy, who was unfortunately, because we changed the date, it caught her out and she isn't able to attend, but she did send an email to Mark that she has some words that she'd like to pass on. Dorothy Graham, I'm sure you're familiar with, yes. And she's very pleased to hear for yourself, Suzanne, and obviously the staff, the pupils and the families out of St Joseph's to get to read the very good report, particularly as it's the 60th Jubilee anniversary year. And she mentions obviously the hard work, commitment, dedication, it comes across in the report, and that every child is valued individually, and that the staff go above and beyond to support them and to look after their academic, mental and spiritual development. And the church is very heartened to see in each area they looked at, as well as achieving very good, which is no mean feat. Mention was made of the gospel values of hope, compassion, justice and love. So Dorothy just wanted to pass these words on. Also that the involvement of the children in leadership committees, the Laudato Si, or Psi group, sorry, and the parents who also enjoy regular opportunities to engage in the life of the school with their child, including family masses, and but also the responsibility for the children have involved in the gathering of evidence to support applications for accredited awards, and for example the Pope Francis Faith Award. So her final words were, it's a ringing endorsement from Education Scotland, and she wants to offer her sincere congratulations. So after Dorothy's words then, I'll ask for any other words or comments from members. Sorry, Councillor Pang.
Congratulations for this very good report. It's actually very nice to have it done in the long model so we can actually see a detailed assessment, because sometimes I feel like when we get short model reports it doesn't go into the depth. Just a few things I would like to commend you on. The staff and children have worked together very effectively to establish a caring school community, and I think we have, it's no surprise really, and I think we've seen that in practice over the last couple of weeks, that parents and carers and families feel involved and want the best for the school. So I think this is excellent. I've just got a question about outdoor learning. So it's mentioned in the report. So what sort of things do you do? Because it is highlighted, and I think we want our young people to be outdoors as much as possible and to be part of the curriculum. So could you maybe explain how you've gone about implementing that, and what kind of things you do?
A couple of years ago, as part of our feedback from parents, we asked what they would like to see more of within the curriculum, and one thing that was highlighted was outdoor learning. We looked at what we already had available within and around the school. We looked at the needs of the children, specifically around about our children who are entitled to pupil equity funding. And we looked at the sort of social needs of these children, and we felt that actually the development of the sort of soft skills round about teamwork, problem solving would be beneficial to develop. There's a provision called Off-Grid that's available within Clarkston, and we used the PEF provision, the Pupil Equity Fund, to fund time down there for all our children, and every term the children get 2 sessions, and it's a full morning in Off-Grid, and the staff very skillfully link it to the curriculum at that point as well. We also have muddy movers for primary 1 and 2, and it does exactly what it says in the tin. It's probably the dirtiest time of the week, where primary 1 and 2 get to go out into the school playground, and they use a lot of equipment to sort of problem solve teamwork as well. So there is lots goes on within our school, and obviously Off-Grid as well.
That's great. It came from parents and carers, and you've included that in the curriculum. Have you shared this practice with others in East Renfrewshire or the clusters? Because I think there is now more of an emphasis on outdoor learning and the benefits of it.
It's something we're looking to develop as a cluster as part of the transitions. Currently the education department are focusing on looking at transitions from primary into secondary and how we can support some of our children with additional support needs. Recently at the in-service day in February, we got together as head teachers to look at how we can ensure that we are sharing practice and effectively meeting the needs of our children from primary into secondary school as well. So it's something that we spoke about in terms of the use of Off-Grid and how perhaps St Ninians would be able to access that and the skills set that our staff have as well.
Thank you, Councillor Bragnell. Councillor O'Donnell.
First of all, thanks to the head teacher for coming in and meeting even more politicians this week. I'm sure this was the last thing you wanted to do. Excellent report, so thank you very much for that. You should be very proud of everyone in the school, the people, the pupils, the parents and the teachers. It's pretty remarkable. I agree with Councillor Pragnell, it's unusual to get the long form report, and I think it's actually even more unusual, and I will be corrected, to get very good in all categories. That is quite an achievement. So really well done on that. I also had a couple of very minor questions with things that caught my eye. One was on the no hands up approach on questions as well, because going back to my day, that was the only way. But so if you could give a lot of colour on that. And secondly, the comment that approximately 17% of children receive additional support for their learning. That seemed very, very low compared to the numbers that we normally talk about in the Education Committee. So just like to understand if there's something unusual about the St Joseph's in that respect. Thank you.
So the no hands up approach is part of the formative assessment. So it's how we engage the children without causing them a huge amount of anxiety by asking them to put their hands up, because obviously if a child doesn't have their hand up, it's very quick to see that maybe they don't understand or maybe they don't want to talk out in class. So the no hands up gives them time to think. So with the no hands up, they then get thinking time as well. So if a teacher asks a question, the children then have time to sort of formulate a question, or they'll pair and share before the teacher will then ask a child for a question as well, so they get to maybe talk to the person next to them. So it means that all children are included, and you don't have anybody sitting there thinking, I'm not too sure, or that anxiety that sort of starts with a child and they then want to go to the toilet. So it's just to make sure that the children have that thinking time, and that it's sort of everything's accessible for the children as well. With regards to the 70%, that's 70% of our children who are registered as additional support needs. Across the school, we also have differentiation within all of our classes in terms of meeting the needs effectively of all our learners. So the 17% of children are those that are identified to have, for example, a wellbeing plan or an additional support needs profile. We do have things like our dyslexia club, we have trail, we have reading recovery, all these things that maybe it's not children who have got a wellbeing plan, but it's children who access that support as well. So the 17% may seem low, but on a day-to-day basis, you have children of all differing needs that we cater for within our school that maybe not have an actual wellbeing plan or an ASM profile as well.
I think Siobhan wants.
Thank
Siobhan.
you. I'll just sort of build on and add to what Suzanne was saying there. We do know obviously that additional support needs is also linked to poverty, so that percentage will be significantly higher than the East Renfrewshire average or the national average in some of our schools, and then it will be lower in other schools. In our primary schools at the moment across the authority, the percentage of children recorded as having an additional support need is around 23%. So St Joseph's, given the demographic, we would expect that to be lower than the authority average.
So that's very helpful. Thanks for the comments. That's very helpful. But then that increases through secondary then, because the figure in my mind is 35% or that sort of range. So it increases with more diagnosis as we go through. Thank you very much. Thanks for the clarification. Very helpful, and thank you, and congratulations again. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Merrick.
I don't have any questions. I just want to congratulate you on a great job. I have a vested interest in St Joseph's, or I used to have, because my children went to St Joseph's, obviously, and some of my ancestors taught, and ancestors is the operative word, have taught at St Joseph's. But I think this is tremendous. That one bit that strikes me is how the children get involved and what their next steps are. I think that's that's a wonderful thing to be able to do nowadays, and that'll hold them in good stead as they move on and so on. But overall, I think this is a fitting tribute to the 60th anniversary. You know, 60 years ago, who could have imagined how things were going to go? And the community around there love is very, very, very positive, particularly at this time, and that's wonderful. Very well done to yourself and all the staff, and the parents, and the children themselves, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you, Colm. Councillor, you have microphone, sorry. Your microphone. Thank you. Oh, Fiona.
I just want to say this was a wonderful report. I mean, really was. And I did have a wee laugh at one point, because it said the inspection team identified 2 areas for improvement. Continue to build, and as planned, continue to. And I thought, That gave me a wee laugh. So well done. Great report.
Great, thank you, Fiona. With regards to talking about figures, Councillor O'Donnell, obviously there's a paper coming up. I think there'll be a lot more discussion on that. And one thing that occurred to me in discussion with the senior team, there's no need for I think a formal diagnosis to be recognised for a child to receive support, and lots of nodding heads there. So that, you know, the support needs are catered for without that necessarily. There was one question I had about it that struck me, because self-evaluation and, you know, actually that process you go through to reflect on, are you getting it right? And you mentioned about and I don't know if I've heard about this before in other schools, or the trio of teachers where they go in, they work together. I think it'd be interesting to hear a bit more about that process. Thanks.
So in St Joseph's there's a huge focus on the professional development of our staff, because they're the people who are with your children day in and day out. So we want to ensure that they have the appropriate skill set and that they feel confident, and that obviously any of their own interests as well in terms of professional development are taken into account. What we do try to do is make sure that what we're seeing in the class aligns with our school improvement priorities, because we want it to be working together as a whole, instead of having teachers who are focusing on something that's not in the school improvement plan and therefore not having a lasting impact in the school. So our teachers work together at the start of the year and they pick a question which is linked to our school improvement plan to then investigate. So it could be around, for example, metacognition and the impact of metacognition on children who are dyslexic, or it could be retrieval practice on your more able learners. So it's a specific question around something that's in our school improvement plan. Throughout the course of the year, there obviously we have additional time for our professional development, so that's focused on professional reading, looking at query-based evidence of the impact of these things, and then they go into each other's classrooms. So this term 2, they work together and they go in and watch each other teach, and then they feed back to each other about what they've seen, and then at the end they have a conclusion as to that they've got an outcome for their question, and they then present it in May at our in-service to the rest of the staff. And if it's something that is actually worthwhile and we can see a significant impact on the children, then it's something that as a whole school we will then move forward with, and it'll be written into the next year's improvement plan. It'll continue on as well. So it's all about the staff taking ownership for the changes and the improvement in our school, because they're the people they're the ones that are going to make a difference to our children.
Great, thanks for that. And I'd be interested to hear, is that common elsewhere, or is it down to the schools individually to do, decide how that evaluation, self-evaluation?
There's various methods for self-evaluation, but I would say it's a strength across all our schools in early year settings. But head teachers, they're empowered to make decisions about what particular method to use, but as a whole, gathering information. And I would actually go back to the point Fiona made. The fact that the next steps by Education Scotland are continue to, or as planned, shows that our schools know, and St Joseph's knows where they're going and what they've got to do next in that journey to excellence. And if you think back to a lot of the reports we've brought in the last couple of years, they nearly all continued, and I think that's down to that strength of leadership of change and self-evaluation.
Well, great, thanks Janice. Well, and that really comes back to yourself again, that excellent leadership. But at the open day as well, it struck me just, and obviously being familiar again with the school of my own children, but the teamwork that Councillor Merrick's talked about it, that great community that's there, and how they actually include the children as well, the young people and the parents. It's just it's great. So thank you for coming today. Do we have any other comments? Or no? Well, sorry. Thank you. So we're asked, obviously, we've commented and noted, and we've been asked to approve the action plan, assuming the committee is happy to do so. But we'd like to give you the opportunity, Ms Martin, if you have some words that you'd like to share with us. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you to the convener and the committee members for the opportunity to speak with you today. This year, as mentioned, St Joseph's Primary School celebrates its Diamond Jubilee, 60 years dedicated to the communities of Busby, Clarkston, Eaglesham and the parishes of St Joseph's and St Bridget's. Therefore, we found it very fitting that Education Scotland had the opportunity to visit our school this year and observe firsthand the difference we make every day for every child in our care. The inspectors highlighted that our children are happy, enthusiastic and confident children who are very proud of their school. Our staff work well as a team, ensuring high quality learning and teaching, and together we are ambitious for all our children. The report also highlighted our welcoming, nurturing, caring and inclusive ethos and the positive relationships we foster, which has led to a strong sense of community. In St Joseph's, we live our faith through our values. Our dedication to our faith lived is also clearly evident in the report, highlighting that the ethos and culture of our school is underpinned strongly by gospel values, nurture and children's rights, and that the school's gospel values are the foundation for the school community's approach to continuous improvement. Pupil leadership, as mentioned, and voice in St Joseph's is very important, and it was highlighted as a significant strength of our school. It was reported that all children are involved in leadership committees, which clearly reflect the school's improvement plan and are leading to meaningful improvements driven by our children's voices. I'm particularly delighted that the dedication, commitment and leadership of all school staff have been recognised throughout our report. There is a strong culture of leadership across our school, with our staff feeling empowered and supported effectively to take forward change and drive improvement within the school. Through our professional review and development process, working parties and learning cycle, which I've explained, practitioners engage in evidence-based research and understand the impact of their practice on raising attainment and achievement and effectively meeting the needs of all our children. The development of learner agency across our school was recognised as practice worth sharing more widely. Our effective approaches which support our children to successfully lead their own learning through our metacognition model and our retrieval practice was shared with our colleagues at the recent East Renfrewshire Head Teacher Seminar. In St Joseph's Primary, we value the very strong relationships we have with our parents. Our highly effective approaches to working in partnership with children and parents and helping to build a stronger school community as recognised by the Inspectorate. Our curriculum, which ensures our children are developing skills for life, learning and work through real life and relevant contexts, was recognised throughout the report through outdoor learning, our terminally curricular focus, innovative use of digital technologies, the development of play pedagogy in primary 1 and 2, and the inquiry-based approach from primary 3 to 7. We strive to develop the 4 capacities in all our children. The report also highlights the consistently high levels of attainment and achievement across the school, which is a result of the hard work and dedication of all staff and the involvement of our families. Overall, almost all our children make very good progress in literacy and numeracy and maths, and a considerable number are exceeding expected levels. This is a trend which has been consistent in St Joseph's over time. One thing that we're particularly pleased about is the language used in the report. It's very specific to our context. Words like bespoke, when referencing our approach to supporting children with additional needs, relentless focus, when referencing our staff focus on getting it right for every child, and children's wellbeing at the heart of staff's work. The language used in the inspection reports is deliberate and specific, and I feel it truly reflects who we are as a school and a community. St Joseph's Primary School is well placed to take forward the recommendations in our report through the action plan that we've submitted. I would like to thank the brilliant staff team of St Joseph's and our wonderful parents and partners. I'd like to thank the Quality Improvement team, the Education Department, who have provided invaluable support and guidance. Thank you to the Convener of Education, all members of the Education Committee for their support. I'm immensely proud to be the head teacher of St Joseph's Primary School, but nothing gives me more joy than to see our children thrive and succeed. So a huge thank you to the children of St Joseph's who make us proud every day and who motivate us to be better for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lovely words. Yes, and Dorothy Graham noted as well the help from the QIO team and the senior team in education that you receive. And thanks for coming to see us today. And obviously, I'm assuming you would rather be back in your school. So please feel free to head back to St Joseph's just now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excellent. Okay, we've actually, a slight change in the agenda has been requested to make it flow better. So item number 4 was the spotlight on the Learnwell service in Isabel Mayor. We're first of all going to go to item number 5 to get the report on the progress of the additional support for learning review recommendations. And Siobhan, I'll let you present that first. Thanks.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this paper is to update Education Committee on the progress that has been made in achieving the recommendations agreed as a result of the East Renfrewshire Review of Additional Support for Learning. The findings and recommendations of our review were agreed by Education Committee in February 2022. This review followed on from the publication of Angela Morgan's report on additional support for learning in Scotland, All Our Children, All Their Potential. Based on the findings of the review, 19 recommendations were agreed and subsequently organised into the following 4 categories: vision, culture and climate, specialist provision and career-long professional learning. 4 work streams linked to these categories and comprising of a range of staff at all levels across the system were established to take the recommendations forward. Page 34 of your papers highlight the key actions that have been taken forward by the vision work stream, and this includes the development of a vision and aspiration for our learners with additional support needs, to have their views taken into account in a meaningful way, to promote their sense of belonging, acknowledge their individuality and situation, and have experiences which are planned with flexibility. The work of the Culture and Climate Group is captured on page 35 and highlights work we've taken forward around the promise, attendance, mentors and violence, inclusive practice and relationships and behaviour in school. Page 36 captures key activity related to career-long professional learning and has included the very successful implementation of our first ever Pupil Support Assistance Conference, which was attended by around 250 pupil support assistants and had a focus on inclusive themes such as nurture, trauma-informed practice, de-escalation strategies and understanding autism. Our specialist provision network have been leading work on improving our practice around supporting children with complex additional support needs who require more intensive support via a specialist provision. This has led to the successful establishment of Carrollside Communication Centre and the enhanced nurture provision within Carleybar. These work streams have been guided by a comprehensive 3-year action plan and have also taken into account national updates such as the National Additional Support for Learning Action Plan and the National Behaviour in Schools Action Plan. We're coming to the end of our 3-year plan, and whilst we've made very good progress in fostering a more inclusive environment and improving the experiences and outcomes for learners with additional support needs, we know there is still work to do, and we will be working with stakeholders on the creation of a new 3-year action plan to be taken forward from session 25-26 onwards. I'm delighted that Shauna Moore and Claire Crichton have joined us today to build upon the work around transitions. You heard a bit earlier from the pupils from Isabel Mayor School, and Chris Atherton, our Deputy Principal Educational Psychologist, who will give more detail around the work taking place related to attendance through our Learnwell service. Elected members are asked to note and comment on the content of the Education Department report on the progress of the ASL review recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan. As we're asked to note and comment, do we have any members would like to any specific questions or comments? Councillor Bragno.
Can I just ask about the PSA training? How regularly do you see this happening? Because sometimes the complaint you get from parents is the child is autistic, but sometimes they've got a new PSA and maybe they're not kind of clued up on what's that child's triggers or are. So how regularly is this training going to be taking place, especially on trauma-informed practice as well? It's really positive it's happening, but is there a regular programme? And also, can parents request, how do they go about requesting an individual plan for their child?
Okay,
So in terms of the PSAs, the conference was just one example of a range of training and support we've developed. So Claire's actually been leading a piece of work around training all PSAs in trauma-informed practice through a programme called Keeping Trauma in Mind. That has been rolled out amongst almost all of our PSAs, and in fact it's been so successful they've developed a sort of level 2 of that training called Still Keeping Trauma in Mind. And actually what we've tried to do is involve some PSAs in the delivery of that training. They're the ones with lived experience and quite often spend a lot of time with children, young people with those complex needs. So there are PSAs who are particularly skilled and experts in that area who are co-delivering some of that training. In addition to that, we've developed a range of sort of self-directed professional learning through the development of SWAYs that PSAs are able to access, for example, in an in-service day, or if they have some time out of class to be able to do that without having to go away somewhere for a specific course. And we've also developed a PSA induction programme and guidance to go along with it. So it's an ongoing thing, and it will continue to be an ongoing support that we provide for PSAs amongst other staff as well. In terms of parents' requests and support, that would be done through the school and the Link Educational Psychologist. The school has regular joint support team meetings where they would be discussing children who have additional support needs. Parents are able to, through their relationship with the school, sort of share any concerns or any needs they think their child has, and in collaboration with the school and the educational psychologist, that would be assessed and reviewed, and where appropriate, a plan would be opened, whether that be a child's wellbeing plan or the more formal sort of CSP process.
Thanks, Siobhan. Thanks, Councillor Pagnell. Any other questions or comments? Councillor O'Donnell?
This was a very comprehensive report, and there's clearly a huge amount of good work that's going on, and I particularly like the SWAY report on inclusion. I thought that was really helpful to include that. I'm struggling a little bit in context. This is obviously based on previous recommendations, and we're progressing very well with those. But if I then stand back and think, well, how are we compared to the provision of these services to other authorities? And we do that in terms of our schools. We can do that quite easily, and we do it very often, and we know where we stand. I'm struggling to put into context, is this good, very good, excellent? You know, I'm not really sure where we are on that. So maybe that's a separate report, but if you can give me some sort of guidance on that, please.
So I suppose in terms of other authorities, I know a number of authorities did do their own review of additional support for learning, sort of following the Morgan review. I think we were the first local authority to take it forward. Different authorities will have different priorities based on their needs. So in terms of the specific actions that we're taking, it probably would be difficult to measure against that. What we do is, obviously, as stuff comes in nationally, we would look at that and adapt our planning and the work that we're taking forward based on information. So, for example, we looked at the BISR report, the Behaviour in Scottish Schools, and we adapted part of that in conjunction with looking at our own data, such as violence to staff and bullying incidents, etc. And we looked at incorporating the circle approach across all of our schools, and that wasn't originally on the action plan, but that evolved. I suppose that the bits that we would be able to do then comparisons is around those measures. So for example, if we look at leaver destinations, we can look at that for, you know, this year our care experience children, young people, it's 100% are in a positive destination. So that we can look at attendance. So there would be some other measures we could look at, but in terms of the actual progress, that perhaps would look different in different authorities depending on their needs.
Thank you, Siobhan. I think Councillor O'Donnell, Mark's going to step in.
I mean, I think it's a very helpful question, Councillor O'Donnell. I suppose zooming out for me, the picture that I would look at is the likes of the earlier report So additional support needs, you know, sometimes we'll focus on our specialist provision, and you'll hear a little bit more about that this morning, and you'll hear some of the really highly effective practice there. But I guess as the committee were asking earlier, if we've got around just under 30% when you take primary and secondary combined, it's slightly higher, as you were saying, it's about 34% in secondary that have additional support needs. My question then is, how well are we meeting the needs of the young people in all of our establishments? And I guess for me, the measures of those then come down to, you know, it could be the inspection reports that you were hearing there. There's one that will be coming to the next committee on Williamwood. They will have probably not quite 30%, but quite a significant number of their young people. For me, it's about how well are we meeting the young people's needs there. I would use measures like attendance. So our attendance is still not back to where we want it to be, but it is the highest in the country. And we're continuing to try and make sure that all our young people feel that sense of belonging that you heard, I think, really strongly from Miss Martin, that every young person feels that in their school. Also in terms of the achievement, those leadership opportunities, that wider curriculum work, the sort of metacognition, the meta skills that we were talking about last time. And then I guess the other measure for me is the attainment. So how well are our schools, whether that's our high schools or our primary schools, getting those inclusive environments, meeting the children's needs, upskilling the teachers, that then enables our young people to achieve. And I guess when we look at the attainment results again, we have the highest in Scotland. So that's probably where I would, if we wanted to try and get a sense of how well are we doing for some of those things, we're not there yet. And those, I think Siobhan's comment is also very helpful, that national picture continues to change on a regular basis as well. But for me, it's about how well are we meeting the needs and equipping our staff to do that.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Councillor Brannigan. Sorry, Councillor O'Donnell.
Thanks for that. I think part of the reason for the questions is that as councillors, we will quite often get individual casework around additional support needs, and all sorts of claims and stuff being made in terms of, you know, the authority are not focusing on this versus the more academic children. And I don't think we do have that sort of framework as committee members and as councillors to say, look, actually on XYZ, you know, this is what we are doing, and it's actually pretty damn good. We don't have that tool to help explain where we are, because it's always about the individual in this sort of circumstances. There can be very extreme issues and conditions that are being dealing with, which we can't, you know, have successful outcomes 100% of the time. But it's that sort of positioning of where we are, and tools for us to say, like, no, yes, we are completely on this, and we know where we are, and we know where we're going. And I'm not sure that's quite there, because it's hidden within mainstream schools reports. You know, it's not explicit. Obviously, we do have Isabel Mayer, which has had its own separate reports, which I think was the only one that was excellent for a number. So we do have some tools, but it's sort of buried away a little bit. So it's maybe something to think about for future years. And I noticed your comment about an operating plan for the next year. Maybe there's something about, well, how do we put that into context of, you know, to help explain to service users and carers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. I think I came to a similar sort of position, but from a different angle, because I'm conscious. I looked back at the 2022 original, where it came out with the 19 recommendations, and created the 4 categories, which then have created the streams. And it mentions in the report that it's a journey, not a destination. But obviously on journeys, like, you have forks in the road, you have circumstances change. So how has it adapted, and what changes have been made? Also, it talks about the ESL oversight group, and who is that? What's the makeup of it, and what's its role in terms of you know, recognising different priorities, and so the second part of what we've got to say really is about, like, obviously we talk about percentages, but in different schools it's different. And SIMD, how is that taken into account, where there's going to be much more support needed in individual schools, so it'd be helpful. Yeah, might be a lot in that, Siobhan. Hopefully you got it all that you want to talk about.
Yeah, thank you. So the ASN Oversight Group, really the core purpose of that is to ensure that the action plan is on track and the work is being taken forward and is having the impact that was intended with it. It's made up of myself, Quality Improvement Manager, Principal Educational Psychologist, and then a couple of head teachers, and the different work streams will come along to that and present updates in terms of the key work being taken forward. And it has been a really effective mechanism in terms of continuing to ensure that there is that high profile in the work that's been taken forward and the progress that's been made within it. In terms of different schools having different levels of sort of numbers of children with additional support needs, and we do know that there are some schools that will have higher numbers of children with additional support needs. All of our mechanisms around providing support and providing resources are based on the needs of that school and the needs of the children. So, for example, schools will complete a PSA audit each year where they will share with the Education Department the number of children who have a wellbeing plan, the level of needs within that plan, and a request for hours. And annually that's reviewed by Claire Crichton and myself in terms of allocating pupil support assistance for the following year. A similar kind of process works with educational psychologists, where each school is allocated a certain educational psychologist for support. However, if there was a school where there was increasing referrals into the service and that one person didn't have the capacity, an educational psychologist from the team would pick up that case and support that child and their family. So it doesn't necessarily matter where you are or what the percentage. Those that need the support would be provided with it. And then obviously we have the Education Resource Group that meet monthly, and that group looks at sort of specialist support, either through outreach support or else through a place within a specialist provision. And again, we meet monthly, and referrals will be made into that for requests for support.
I think that's one of the key things that you mentioned, which it then goes on to is the resources required in an appropriate place. So yeah, that's helpful. Thanks very much. There's another couple of things that I noted. Circle's been mentioned a few times, and it's mentioned in the report. I think I've got a good idea as to what it is, but also DEN. And can you explain possibly what those are and what their again context? You know, how they're applied and used.
Yep, so the Circle approach is a programme that has been developed in conjunction with Education Scotland and a number of local authorities and health boards, and it's really around inclusive practice. The first thing that they look at is classroom environments to ensure that the environment is set up appropriate for children, so takes into account sensory needs, takes into account relationships and any other factors that would make accessing that classroom or remaining within the classroom a challenge for children and young people. It also then looks at specific individual needs for individual children and upskills teachers in support of that. In order to, at the moment we've rolled it out across our primary schools, and in order to support schools we provided train the trainer training. That's too many trains, I think, there. And that was for one person in every primary school, so that they then become the expert in that approach, and they then support their own schools and deliver training on the approach within their own school. But we've also set up regular network meetings, so those trainers then come together throughout the year to discuss what's working, what's not working, share approaches and just get a bit of additional support. And we also have a colleague who will go into schools where needed and offer further support around that. Feedback at the moment has been extremely positive in terms of the impact it's having. and we have seen a reduction in the number of violence to staff incidents that would correlate from when we adopted this approach. In terms of the DEN, so the DEN is an enhanced nurture provision. We had a few years ago, we had started to see more primary age children no longer being able to be educated within their home school, and were perhaps going to other establishments such as Kibble or Spark of Genius, places like that, and we really wanted to keep hold of our children. So we looked at establishing an enhanced nurture provision with teachers who are experts around trauma-informed practice, social emotional behavioural needs, and basically it's referred to through the Education Resource Group. It's around, typically around 6 months, quite intensive support, but not full time, so the child would still remain on the roll and spend some of their time at their home, local primary school, but for half of the week they would get really intensive support around those kind of nurturing principles and supporting them to then make the transition back to their primary school full time. And again, feedback around that's been from parents, carers, children, young people, and also schools across the authority. Feedback's been really positive. We have had a number of children who have very successfully transitioned out of the nest, the den, back into their home primary school. And since it was established, we've not had any primary school children leave the authority, which was the most important thing for us, because we want to keep hold of them.
Okay, excellent, a very comprehensive answer. Thank you. Sorry, Fiona.
I was just going to ask, my background was nurture, and when I started in nurture, when you took the children in, you weren't supposed to do any school work with them, and I just wondered if it was the same. It was more for the social aspect, the behavioural aspect. I just wondered if it had changed.
So a lot of the time is structured around their well-being, emotional well-being needs. So there will be sort of gathering round the table, that traditional nurture model that you're speaking about. So if it's a morning, they will sit round a table together, they'll have breakfast, they'll have those conversations, taking turns, there'll be work around emotional regulation, understanding their feelings, giving strategies to cope if they're feeling upset, or if they're feeling angry, or if they're feeling anxious. So a lot of it is around those sort of core nurture needs, but some of it does focus, there's very close links with their home primary schools, so some of it will focus around the curriculum as well, because we know that can be a heightened level of anxiety if a child is missing some work and feels that their transition back to school, there's a gap, and that can lead to the anxiety, so it's a bit of a balance.
I was just going to say that was something I was always worried about when we weren't allowed to do maths or language, like the written language, and it always kind of worried me that they were going to go back into class in 6 months' time not having covered the area of work, but so I kind of surreptitiously did some work with them, but I wasn't supposed to, but I was just worried that they were going to go back, and that would be another barrier for them when they went back in.
Yeah,
right, thank you.
Thanks for that, Fiona. Councillor Wallace.
Can't have a committee meeting going by without saying something. So, in attendance, it looks as if ERC has been held as being the sort of primary mover in getting attendance back in place. It mentions nudge theory techniques. Can you enlighten us on what that is? Thanks.
So nudge theory techniques would be having that kind of contact. So it could be if a child's not in with agreement with the family, it could be sending text messages to the child rather than to the parents around coming in. It could be a member of staff going round to their house to come and tap the door and say, right, you're not in yet, get dressed and I'll drive you into school. So it's just those kind of, I suppose, proactive ways of supporting a child to get back into school.
Okay, right. Actually, going back at it, does circle mean something in terms of it? Is it an acronym or?
think it is. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is right
And
now.
Den?
No, that's
Just term. But nudge is quite obvious, it's a wee nudge. Great, thanks for that. Any other notes or comments? Well, I believe we have done extensively. Followed the recommendation to note and comment. Siobhan? Oh, you okay? So thanks for that. Thanks for bringing it to us. And so we'll move on to the next item, which was we've changed the order, as I said, and we, as you mentioned, we've got Shauna and Marie here with us. So I believe you have a presentation.
Claire.
Sorry, Claire. Sorry about that. I'll hand over to you. Thanks.
So, good morning, convener, elected members and Education Directorate colleagues. I am Shauna Moore, Head Teacher of Isabel Mayer School and Family Centre. I took up my new post in January of this year, and I am delighted to have this opportunity to meet the elected members who represent the families of the children and young people of Isabel Mayer School. I would like to thank you for the chance to showcase this morning just some of the ways our Skills for Learning, Life and Work curriculum supports the children and young people of Isabel Mayer for life after school. The work starts within our family centre, and I think I would really like to let you know that you met the S5 and 6 young people, but those core skills we start developing at the family centre. Continuing through primary and secondary, we take full account of the principles of Curriculum for Excellence, in particular relevance, enjoyment and personalisation and choice. I hope you enjoyed the chance to meet with some of our senior phase young people who are based at Wood Farm Secondary and got to find out from them what they enjoy about school and their views, aspirations and perhaps some fears about their next steps post-school. We now have confirmation all of our S6 leavers have secured either a college place of their choice, West College Scotland and Glasgow Kelvin, or building-based support from Scottish Autism. My Deputy Head Teacher, Ursula Scrimmager, is instrumental in planning for and supporting our young people and families and has established and nurtured many strong partnerships with HSCP colleagues, allied health professionals, FE colleges and third sector organisations. Ursula and her team have developed a range of resources and technologies to ensure our young people's voice is central to any decision making and not lost in what can be at times feel like a difficult and scary process. As a new East Renfrewshire head teacher in the process of navigating new systems, fostering new relationships with a range of stakeholders and still in a period I call the finding out culture, I would like to share that there has been much that has greatly impressed me with the current systems in place in ERC to support young people with ASN transitioning into adulthood. My previous experience supporting similar secondary schools out with East Renfrewshire was not as joined up or consistent in securing sustained positive outcomes for children or their families despite the schools and the authorities' best efforts. My colleague Claire will tell you more about the transition planning process for ensuring that we take account of best practice principles for transition and the multi-agency collaboration in place for ensuring our young people and their families are at the centre of all that we do. In February 2023, the Scottish Government published a literature review of Scottish, UK and international evidence on the main challenges and experiences faced by young disabled people during transition to adulthood. The research also included evidence of best practice, certain guiding principles of positive transitions, largely revolving around holistic, personalised and concerted planning, developed in collaboration with young people and their families, and underpinned by high quality, well-resourced and well-staffed services, and delivered in partnership. That's hard. It's very hard to do that, particularly we have secured these college placements and building-based supports, but how do we keep that sustained? How do we keep that going when our young people are 25, 30, 35? And we recognise that. As you will be aware, we have a changing population of learners at Isabel Mayer School in comparison to when the school was opened. If you look at the attainment data using the metric of SQA qualifications, you will note that the majority of qualifications are now units within Nat 1 and Nat 2. The majority of children within our family centre and primary school have complex learning needs, with an increase in those with complex medical needs. During times of curriculum review, we are often challenged to think about our youngest mainstream learners in early years in primary 1 and imagine what future employment post-school opportunities we may be preparing them for. It isn't often we as educators are challenged to think about our children and young people with the most complex learning needs and what life for them will be post-school. There is a poverty of opportunity for many of our most vulnerable learners due to many factors, and most keenly felt post-pandemic with a national recruitment crisis in social care and an overall reduction in services. Going forward, it is important for us to ensure that we keep focused on the purpose of education for our learners and continue to develop core skills which will equip them to be the best they can be. We have invested in new augmentative and alternative communication resources and re-established our links with Qual Scotland to ensure that the fundamental skills of teaching communication are central to our curriculum and is responsive and inclusive of the needs of all our learners. This term, in partnership with our Parent Council, we are reviewing our curriculum rationale in light of the National Curriculum Review Cycle and taking a deep dive into what are the skills that we need to be teaching our children and young people to ensure they are equipped to take their place in society. Our Parent Council reps have echoed the Scottish Transition Report, asking about the best health outcomes for their young people, so we are working together to develop our PE and our sports curriculum. This provides us with an opportunity to create new partnerships with our local secondary schools and sports centres, as well as targeting some of our PEF spend for next session to this development. Our drive for a new and sustained partnerships not only enriches our curriculum, but allows Isabel Mayer School to shape what future experiences adult services colleges may offer for our young people in the future. Many of our children and young people may not know what they like unless we support them to take part in a range of experiences. Hopefully, you had the chance to speak to Shauna, who's our principal teacher within the secondary school, about our current DYW and skills programme linking with the community pathways, colleges, work experience partners, and their plans for moving forward with our STEM curriculum. I would like to take this opportunity to extend a warm invitation to all our elected members at some point to visit our school and see for yourself how we are preparing our pupils for life after school, from the very youngest in the family centre to our 18-year-olds in S6.
Thank you. Claire, I didn't know idea where you came from. Apologies.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to just pick up on something that Shauna was saying there, and I think it's really encouraging about the work that's taking place in Isabel Mayer, and you met some of those young people this morning, which was probably the highlight of your morning. I know it's been the highlight of mine. But I suppose I wanted to just reiterate that we have young people with complex needs across all of our mainstream schools to greater and lesser degree. And whilst we have 12 leavers in Isabel Mayer, currently we have 81 leavers across our 7 secondary schools who, perhaps not to the extent in terms of need of our young people in Isabel Mayer, but have quite complex needs within their own profiles. So in order to address this, and this is not new, in order to address this, we established a transitions team with our partners in HSCP, and that was established around 2022. So the systematic approach around ensuring that scaffolding is there for that time when a young person is leaving has been really, really important. It's a multi-agency approach. We meet 5 times a year. 5 times are separate meetings for Isabel Mayer School, but there are 5 meetings for our mainstream schools as well, where our partners from different agencies, etc., myself included from education, will discuss possible supports for a young person, and the transitions team ensure that they manage that progress moving forward. I just wanted to highlight that this morning because I do think that often, whilst it's great that we have such a focus on our young people in Isabel Mayer, we do have a substantial proportion of our cohorts who are leaving who also require a lot of planning to move to adult services. So I also wanted to highlight the work of the Communities Pathways team. You saw some of that this morning. So things like the Bling group, the making badges and jewellery and craft, the Brew Crew, which is around those sort of front of house, bike maintenance as opposed to the Mellow Velo. But we also have independent living skills programmes and independent travel programmes. And our young people in our mainstream schools also receive support from those groups too. Independently from that, we are also across our 7 secondary schools looking at 3 areas to develop the curriculum for young people with additional support needs. And they are around things that you'll probably have heard of from your parent group around financial awareness, independent travel and employability. So we're looking at building those opportunities into all of our mainstream schools as well as in Isabel-Mare. And although we work very closely together, you can see proportionately where the numbers are coming from. And I think I just wanted to highlight the importance of partnership working this morning. Shauna had touched on that, but it has been so crucial in getting it right, because as we project forward, those numbers are not going to diminish. But what we want to do is get smarter about how we are supporting. We want to intervene as early as possible in order to reassure parents and reassure young people, because the anxiety that comes from that can also be a product of their experience. So we're trying to remove that. So as Siobhan had mentioned in the ASN paper, we are working really, really hard as a collective to try and not only identify but to proactively prevent some of the situations that can sometimes occur at those key points of transition, the most important one being the transition out of education and into adult services.
Great, thank you. And are we open to questions now or comments, or is it now on to the...
Chris.
Chris, apologies Chris, I didn't acknowledge you earlier, but I believe you're going to take the presentation part. Thank you.
Just taking a moment to let me share my screen here, sorry. Is everybody okay to see that now? So thank you very much, Convener. My name is Chris Atherton. I'm the Deputy Principal Educational Psychologist. It should say in brackets they're subject to references. The interview was only last week, but seeing as Siobhan's introduced me as such, it's technically still acting for the next wee while. Delighted to be invited today to talk about a piece of work that's been ongoing for the past few years, and its relation to the development of a support service that we're calling the Learn Well service. The Learn Well service supports young people with additional support needs and because of their attendance. And we talk about emotionally based school absence as the kind of global term for the different types of patterns of non-attendance that we're seeing, because there's always an emotional element to it. Either something's keeping them from coming into school or something's keeping them at home for one reason or another. So there's always an underlying emotional reason for it. So that's the definition that we work to within East Renfrewshire. It's without judgment. It's not about non-attendance, school refusal, truancy, anything like that. These are young people that are struggling for a range of different reasons. When we look at the referrals that come in, at the moment the service supports S1 to S4 pupils, and we support them with their learning and also with their well-being, which is fundamental. And it's during periods of significant long-term emotionally based school absence. The young people that we're working with have a wide range of additional support needs, most commonly related to autism, mental health challenges and trauma, and sometimes there's an intersection between those things combined. And what we've been able to do over the past few years is pull together different funding streams in order to develop this service. So we've used the Strategic Equity Fund, the Whole Family Wellbeing Fund, and our Care Experience Children and Young People's Fund to create a team and a network that supports young people who are some of our most vulnerable in the community. So you may have met out in the foyer earlier on Kimberly Valens, who's our Learn Well teacher, and Sarah Trench, our pupil support assistant. They were our original core team members, but with these other funding streams we've been able to develop and expand the service to provide family-based support and outreach support for families as well, through Rachel Beattie and Ailey Bryant, our family support workers. And we also work in partnership using the Care Experience Fund. We work in partnership with Children First, who provide us with project workers that also intervene at an earlier point in time when we've got our own care experience young people. If you managed to see the stall, you maybe have seen this already, but this is a kind of little insight into what a week looks like within the Learn Well service. We've got different groupings. The young people, because of their needs, would struggle to be in exceptionally large groups, so we keep the groups quite small, and that they all require a high level of intensive adult support for their attendance and also for their engagement. So we keep the groups around about 6 at a maximum. We have young people coming out usually 2 to 3 times a week within those groups to access support. And that's what the kind of week looks like in terms of morning activities, and you can see that they're focused on learning and a combination of wellbeing experiences, and then there's a lot of kind of collaboration on a Friday to give them an enjoyable place to be towards the end of the week, and that's mirrored in the AM and in the PM. Just want to talk a wee bit about the referral cohort, just to give you an insight into who we're supporting. All our care experience young people across S1 to S4, where their attendance is dipped below 70%, and we've actually upped that now to 80%, have been offered support from this service now. Some young people and families have refused to the support, the offer of support, they've declined it, and that's their right, and there are families that are being supported in other ways, and sometimes another person isn't the answer, so we totally respect that as well. But we've certainly gone out and asked the question for all of those care experience young people. We have supported 28 young people since August 2023 who are care experienced or on the edges of care, which usually implies that the families are working in partnership with social work, but there are quite significant risk factors around what's going on for individuals. At the moment, there are 20 young people receiving direct project work support from Children First through this model, a couple of whom are also coming out to work with our teacher and our pupil support assistant, but our first focus is to try and help stabilise and improve their attendance within their mainstream schools, and that would always be our hopeful end goal for all of the young people involved. Through the Strategic Equity Fund pathway, where we have provided a teacher in Kimberly Valens, Kimberly and Sarah have supported 42 young people since August of 2023. 22 are offered direct support now within Braid Bar House, which has been a really revolutionary development for us. The work was originally done in an individualised sort of individual tuition basis from September last year. Through investment and hard work from the department, we've been able to create a very nurturing environment in Braid Bar House, which is a former janitorial building, and that's really allowed us to enhance the offer of support around that. And so hopefully some of you have got the chance to see what that looks like, and we would extend an invitation to all of you if you would like to come down and see the environment and hopefully meet a couple of the young people. That would be great. So we've got 13 of those young people that are currently accessing support are also receiving Whole Family Wellbeing Fund support. So the family are getting outreach support, and the young people are being offered direct support in situ in Braid Bar House from the core team there. Kimberly and Sarah have been with us for 3 years now. So in the first year they were offering that direct tuition in the home, and also using locations scattered around East Renfrewshire where we could get them for one-on-one tuition. So there's been over 50 young people supported since we started this model, and it's developed over time. The attendance and engagement for these young people usually averages around 62 to 66%. That's based on the number of engagements with offers of support. So appointments can quite often be missed when you're working with young people with mental health needs. You need to kind of bake that into the planning and recognise that not every session will go according to plan, and sometimes young people will have good days and sometimes they will have trickier days, and that's something we're continuing to monitor just to make sure that we're providing the right conditions for them to engage with the service in the best way possible. I just wanted to finish off by just highlighting a couple of areas of feedback. So we do go out and ask for structured feedback from the young people. This is our baseline data from last year. We would hope that this is enhanced by the fact that we now have the Braidbar House provision. You can see that there was the option of strongly disagree, but this is the young people themselves, and there's young people that are saying that they're really enjoying working with Learn Well. These are young people that really were feeling quite hopeless, is the kind of prevalent theme before Learn Well service was in existence. So to be able to turn that kind of thing around has been really, really good. They've got good relationships with the team. They're starting to feel good about themselves again, and that's again a really important factor to consider in the work. So I can let you glance through that. There's other evaluative data towards the end of the presentation that I've left in there for members to consider. I was told I had 5 minutes. When Siobhan's seen 21 slides, she nearly passed out. I'm not going to go through them all systematically. Sorry, did somebody put their hand up there?
Oh, sorry, no, I just wanted to make a comment at the end of your presentation. Sorry, Chris, sorry.
No worries at all, no worries. Sorry, just noticed that coming out there. So these are actually unprompted evaluative comments that we've had from the young people that we've been working with, and it's one thing going out to evaluate a service and come up with the questions yourself. I think what that hopefully tells a story of is young people that have been feeling really, really low and are actually feeling really good about themselves again, and actually feel a sense of hope and a sense of future direction, and that's absolutely critical for them at this stage in time. Progress can be slow and deliberate around their well-being and also with their learning, but what we're pretty confident is that this service is giving them something that previously didn't exist, and working with other local authorities around this area of EBSA. I've yet to come across a service that's quite like this. Other authorities have different services and supports, but this seems to be fairly unique in my research so far. So we're proud of the impact that that's having on young people, and the families as well have provided us with ongoing positive feedback around their experiences and what this has meant to them as family members, as parents, as carers. So there's a lot to digest in that slide, and like I say, I'm going to stick to my time, but the information's there for you to have a wee look at and reflect on, and if you want to follow up with me, that'd be great, and welcome those conversations. If I was just to summarise some key points so from our work to date, and it is early stages and we learn as we go. We learn from the young people and the families that we're working with to constantly improve. About 92% of parents and carers have said that there's been a positive benefit to the whole family, which is amazing, and 100% of parents and carers have felt that the communication was effective, and that they strongly agreed that the service provided by Learn Well has been effective in improving things for those children and young people. This service does sit within school and system-wide improvement, so it's not just about the intervention that Learn Well service can provide. That service complements the support that's offered by the school. It's not in replacement of that support. So there's a lot of coordinated work with our mainstream schools around referrals when they come in, and who's providing learning activities, and there's a combination of online support, in-person support, and the hope would always be that we can stabilise things and get young people back into where we think they would learn best, if that's the right thing for them. We've done a lot of work around EBSA for practitioners, so we've provided a programme of training. We've also provided a guidance document looking at the best available research in this area, which is available on our Healthier Minds site, and the training for that is delivered with pastoral care teachers within our secondary schools, and there's now training offers in May for primary school staff as well, and we've delivered in head teachers forums and ASN coordinators forums in this area as well. So we're working to be proactive around this too. We've developed a toolkit called the Be Well survey that's helping us tap into that sense of belonging, global well-being, resilience, and some of our schools are starting to use that, so that we've got a better picture of some of the risk factors that we know can precede patterns of non-attendance in school, and hopefully that will allow us to intervene earlier, and so we're hopeful that will serve us well going forward. But it does sit within a wider framework around mental health support, so we work in collaboration with the Healthier Minds service, good links there, and thinking about things like Keeping the Promise Award and our vision and aspiration for ASL learners. So it's very much a cog in a wider network of support for young people around this area. So I just wanted to finish on that. But I've left some more evaluative comments that we've gathered from parents and young people that have worked with us, and they're available in the slides that follow. So I can leave that with you if you want to look further into it. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks for the presentation, Chris. Excellent to see, and obviously the partnerships, the getting out there and sharing and best practice and everything within the schools. First of all, is there any questions for Shauna, for Isabel Mayer, comments? Like Councillor O'Donnell.
Some comments and a question. Shauna and Claire's gone obviously now. Really enjoyed that presentation. Very helpful to hear. Obviously, as a parent that's gone through transition for their child, you know, I'm acutely aware of some of the issues. It does sound as though things have moved on a lot since my own son transitioned, particularly with this multi-agency approach in 2022, I think you were talking about. That sounds very, very helpful. In terms of the comments, one, I think, important point is for the carers and the individuals concerned, this is a very stressful time. You know, it is about not just the next year, but is where is this child going to? How are they going to be successful in their life without carers around them? And that is a constant stress for those individuals. So I was sort of pleased that you mentioned the 25 to 30-year-olds, because I think they haven't been caught by that earlier 2022 multi-agency approach. And there is a cohort, I know quite a few of them, that are in colleges for quite a long time and not really clear where they're going beyond that. Now, that's possibly beyond scope, but you know, and if you think about the numbers you're talking about, 81 people per year, that's building and building in terms of numbers that are perhaps being underlooked a little bit. But I do welcome the approach that you've talked about since 22. The other question was really about communication skills. You emphasised that quite a lot, and I completely agree with that. Now, there has been a historic issue with speech therapy in terms of a lack of practitioners for speech therapy. So just be helpful to understand where we are on that issue now.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. I believe for one point there, Siobhan's going to step in first.
Yeah, I'll maybe start, and then if Shauna has anything she wants to add, she could. We have a service level agreement with HSCP around speech and language therapists. We have a very good working relationship with them. Both Claire and myself meet them 4 times a year, where they provide us an update in terms of their, and at the moment they're fully staffed to the service level agreement, but sort of quarterly we review their caseload, how many children and young people they're working with, how many appointments have been missed, what professional learning they've provided to our schools. They come along to our ASN coordinator meetings, and they'll speak to ASN coordinators across all of our schools. So I would say at the moment we have a very good working relationship with them, and I think it is working well, and they are staffed fully to the complement as per our service level agreement.
Thanks for that, Siobhan. And I believe it's also a Renfrewshire-wide service, the speech and language.
So, yeah, speech and language is part of HSCP, but at the moment I think that falls under the umbrella of East Dunbartonshire. Yeah.
Oh, right, understood. Thank you. Shauna, you want to also?
Yeah, again, coming to a new authority, I was very impressed that very quickly our speech and language therapist comes in very regularly now to school, and we have a consultation model where teachers can meet with the speech and language therapist just to discuss if they have any concerns or if they've noted a cognitive shift around communication, and would it merit a referral to community SLT. The senior manager of the speech and language therapy team has also approached me to talk about what we do moving forward around models for young people who, I talked about some of the devices and things that we've just invested in, and if we find a young person, if we're giving them the opportunity in school to use these voice output devices or low-tech devices, and we think, you know, they really should be having one of their own, we can use that consultation model to then put in a referral, and it's more likely to be picked up because they've had that experience in school. But similarly to what my colleague from St Joseph's said, it's about having highly trained staff within Isabel Mayer School. So we are investing a lot, because I do believe that communication, whether it's about expressive communication, understanding, or social communication, which we touched upon, talking about the den and how our young people regulate or co-regulate, we need to have our staff highly trained around that. So we've got 2 members of staff just now who are doing the advanced Call Scotland training in communication, and we've made new links with Call Scotland, so they've just been dropping off some things for us to borrow. So a young person, for example, with cerebral palsy, we've got a new innovative writing device, which she's doing amazingly with, so we will purchase that for school. Yeah, but we just have to keep on it. We need to work together.
So, thank you, Shona. Councillor Donald, you too.
That's really encouraging to hear. I think one of the issues going back maybe 20 odd years ago was the lack of availability of speech and learning practitioners. Children may only get an hour a month, which was clearly not enough. So it sounds as if with professional training and absorbing that beyond the professional practitioners is happening, so that other people can use some of those techniques, feels as if it's progressed a lot in that sort of time frame. So that's most welcome, because that, and actually I have to say, lack of speech therapy used to be a very common issue that people would raise with you. It doesn't seem to be one of the ones now, which I suppose says its own story, that we are on that. So thanks very much for those responses.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, there was one other thing on transitions, and it links to the previous paper. And there was lots of parent surveys and the likes in the previous paper on needs. I wonder if there's specific ones on transitions and successive transitions that could be, either incorporated in that or as part of this programme as well.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Yeah, we talk about transitions a lot within the school system, and from primary to secondary and stages within each of those. But the key thing, obviously, that it's very great to hear the multi-partner approach, because the transition into adult life is obviously just as important as part of that journey. So, great, thanks for that. Eve, I believe, sorry, you're online, you'd like to come in, thanks.
Yes, I just wanted to thank both the Isabel Mayer School and also the Learn Well programme for their dedication and the wonderful work that they're doing, and thank them also for the invitation for members of this committee to visit, and I will definitely want to be taking up that, and I will be contacting you. But thank you for what is obviously your great dedication, and thanks for the wonderful presentation also from the 2 different organisations. Very much.
Okay. Thanks, Eve. Councillor Pragnell.
First of all, thank you both for your presentations. It's lovely to see how settled you've become at Isabel Mayer. I first met you in January and it was still a new experience for you. So thank you for that great presentation and the emphasis on transition into adulthood, and really pleased to see you mentioning the 20s to 30s range. Certainly from my perspective, I know that from a HSCP being convener for that service, that certainly the speech and language therapy stuff has improved significantly over the last year or 2. So it isn't a complaint that I've received certainly since I was first elected, and it's good that you're embedding these new approaches in the school, and very much look forward to organising a visit to see some of your fantastic pupils and fantastic staff. Chris, I think I've known you, congratulations on your new post. I've known you since you're a newly qualified educational psychologist, so many years supporting my family as well. Really welcome that presentation on the Learning Well service. Had visited before, but looking forward to seeing you now in the new Braid Bar House, and if any of the young people would like to have a wee discussion, more than open to that, but of course at their discretion. But yes, thank you for this great work you're both doing, and certainly the Learn Well service, I wish it had been in existence when I was at school, because I could have really benefited from it, but in the last 3 years it really is having an impact, and look forward to see how it all progresses going forward, and hopefully best practice can be shared nationwide.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Prigdale. With regards to the visit as well, actually, I was talking to the staff earlier about that. I think it might be good we could both go along, actually, and just it really is great to then to see it, you know, and meet everyone individually and chat, and so I'd be happy to do that also, if that's all right, Mark.
Of course.
So any other questions or comments then on that, or Councillor Wallace?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly to Shauna, really interesting to hear about how you're getting on in East Renfrewshire compared with other local or previous local authority, which clearly will be unnamed, but very encouraging to hear your very positive comments about the approaches that this authority is taking, and thank you for that. And I think by the words that you've been saying, I think we're very lucky to have you, so thank you. Can I move perhaps to Chris? You mentioned about care experienced and those with poor attendance, and it's suggesting that approaching about 30% of those who are offered support do not take support. What are the reasons behind that, and what approaches do we take to try and tackle that? Thank you.
Yeah, so the offers of support are from Children First project workers and are on an individualised basis, but there'll be a range of different reasons why families maybe are not in the right moment to accept that type of support. That could be because they've just started to engage with social work services, and there needs to be an emphasis on those relationships in the first instance. The schools are providing an awful lot of intensive support for these young people as well, so whilst we might be offering support for a family or for a young person, they might feel that that support is already being offered in some capacity through existing work. Those are the kind of main reasons why it's usually about relationships. A lot of these young people are also working with other agencies as well, so it could be that they're working with CAMHS professionals, or they're working with a Healthier Minds member of staff as well, who's providing a level of wellbeing support, and that the learning offer that they're accessing just now is right for them. So we don't want to be interfering with that and making things too complicated, because for young people, when they're in that system, they do have to work with a range of different adults, so we have to be mindful that we're not overwhelming families and young people with additional people all the time. But what we have done is we've gone forensically through our data set, and anybody, like I say, that's dipped below 80% who has care experienced, we've asked the question either directly to the families or with the team that know them the best, the team around the child, whether there's any role for the project workers to get involved at that stage. So, and it's something that we can revisit. We did have a family that declined support last year that have been offered support this year because the timing is better and the young person's in a better place to start to engage with that support. So we continue to keep an eye on it, Councillor.
Presumably we can apply a bit of nudge theory to that one as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. And obviously glad to hear that it's just sensitive to, and if they are engaging elsewhere, then it may be, as you said, further down the line they may engage with you. But the important thing is that they're engaging with someone and being able to get some support. Thanks for that. Thanks for the presentation. And I believe that, I think that we've been quite comprehensive So if everyone's happy, we can move on to the final item on the agenda. Sorry, Shauna and Chris, you may want to get back to doing your own important roles, I think. Thanks for coming. And we'll move on to item number 6 from, well, it says Director of Education on the Promise 5th Anniversary Progress Report. But I will leave it Siobhan. Thank you to present it.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this paper is to highlight the work undertaken by East Renfrewshire Council, the Health and Social Care Partnership and the wider Children's Planning Partnership in promoting the Promise. The 5th of February 2025 marked 5 years since the Promise was launched, with the aim of ensuring that all care experienced children and young people will grow up loved, safe and respected, and an expectation that by 2030 the following would be delivered. Love will no longer be the casualty of the care system, but the value around which it operates. Wherever safe to do so, Scotland will make sure children stay with their families, and families will be actively supported to stay together, and children and young people and their families will be listened to, respected, involved, and heard in every decision that affects them. The East Renfrewshire Improving Outcomes for Children and Young People Partnership has taken forward work since 2020 to promote and implement the Promise. By consistently raising awareness of the role of corporate parents, we have sought to ensure that partners understand that when a child or young person becomes looked after, either at home or away, the local authority, health board and a large number of other public bodies take on the statutory responsibility of corporate parent. The Improving Outcomes for Children and Young People have produced a progress report to mark the 5-year anniversary of the Promise, which highlights the breadth and depth of implementation locally and the importance of the partnership in making this happen, and this report will be presented at the next meeting of the full Council. The Education Department has taken forward a range of activity to support our care experienced children and young people and their families in line with the Promise Plan, and this is including raising awareness of the Promise and our corporate parenting duties through the development of Our Promise, which is the Education Department's approach to corporate parenting, through the establishment of Promise champions in every setting in school and the rollout of Keeping the Promise Award training programme, through an increased focus on school improvement activities that value and recognise the needs of care experienced pupils, with most of our school improvement plans including activity related to the Promise, through the development of effective tracking systems to track attainment, achievement and participation of care experienced children and young people. We have developed systems to ensure that the formal and informal exclusion of looked after children from education has ended, with no looked after children and young people being excluded in East Renfrewshire. And our schools have effectively supported and ensured our care experienced young people go on to genuinely positive destinations such as further education or employment, with 100% of looked after children in a positive destination in 22-23 and more recently 23-24. So Education Committee is asked to note the publication of the National Promise Oversight Board 5th Anniversary Report, note and comment on the Education Department update on implementation of the Promise, and note that a full report on the progress of the Promise will be taken to Council on the 23rd of April 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Yep, I think it's interesting. It's actually quite a crucial, important stage. I think for the next 5 years and the 3 years in terms of delivery, I think is the key thing. Is actually, well, it asks us to acknowledge the duties of the Children and Young People Act, and you talked about corporate responsibility, etc. So that's quite an important stage, and this is from an education perspective, but obviously when it comes to full council, again, it'll have the focus it deserves. Any other questions or comments, Councillor Bragdon?
I welcome this paper. Obviously last week the full report went to the Integration Joint Board as well, and there was comments from members of that board. It's really important that we are living our values and delivering the Promise, so that all care experienced young people and those on the edges of care feel loved and appreciated. But really happy with this report coming today, and also I know work is ongoing to establish properly the Promise Board. I know discussions happened yesterday with foster carers to have a rep on the Promise Board, and the first Promise Board sessions during the coming weeks. So it's really important that all agencies are involved with that across all departments in the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pragnell. Any other questions or comments on the paper? Councillor Wallace?
Yeah, can you just confirm that on page 70? Am I right in thinking then 100% of our care experienced kids have actually got to a positive destination? Is that correct?
So it's our looked after. We don't have the data yet for care experience, but 100% of currently looked after children are in a positive destination. Yeah.
And how does that compare with other authorities? Are we kind of ahead of the game there?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Can you maybe share actually that?
Well, it doesn't do any harm.
There's clearly looked after and care experienced.
So care experienced is the umbrella that would encompass all. So that takes in children who are currently looked after, either looked after at home or looked after away from home. It takes into account children who have been previously looked after but are no longer looked after. And really, just because they were previously looked after doesn't mean the trauma that they may have experienced now doesn't exist. So it's really important that we know who those children are in order to support them. And as Councillor Pragnell had mentioned, it also takes into account children on the edges of care. So that's about knowing who those children are and putting in those supports and interventions to prevent them from becoming looked after.
Right, and it helps actually then define the support and the needs are so the terminologies are appropriate and a key thing. Understood. Thanks, Siobhan. Any other questions or comments with regards to the paper? Sorry, Councillor Wall.
I wonder, just as a completely side thing, is there's some very good PowerPoints clearly with a lot of information that was up there, which is very difficult to read. Is it at all possible to get these, even if it's only prepared a day before, if it could maybe be emailed to us so that we can actually see it on the screen here or something like that? Yeah.
Oh, so prior to the meeting?
Yeah, preferably.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Ratter did say that he gave me a nudge and said that afterwards, I haven't mentioned it yet, but that will be sent out to us.
Right. Okay.
But obviously, if it can be sent out prior,
There'll be some, I know that some people.
Well, I noticed.
Some with one.
The trouble is I can't get external Wi-Fi through here.
But just on that point, I was doing that and it was still very difficult to read, even though I had it on my laptop because there's a lot. It was very content dense. So just a comment.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Donnell. Yeah, I did notice that you were in the meeting virtually and you were here. But obviously, yeah, your point is still. So, but so it'll be shared anyway as after this meeting. So sorry, did you say prior to the meeting it is?
No, I know that I've got a.
No, I agree with that, absolutely, yes. Any other questions or comments on the promise paper? No. Great, thank you, and we look forward to seeing the full council paper as well, Siobhan. Okay, thanks very much everyone for your time. That's the final item on the agenda, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.